Many businesses unintentionally build cultures that look busy, but are breaking beneath the surface. Boy, I can believe that. And Dan Beard, my guest today, the team mechanic, will reveal six silent growth killers like hidden burnout, siloed knowledge, and hero dependent teams that stall progress and drain potential. Learn how to spot these traps and shift from chaos to clarity and create a business built for sustainable success.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyon, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyon, your host, Lead Machine coach, and the founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group and Mastermind. And I'm dedicated to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream life and business. So whether you're just starting out or you want to take your business to the next level, let's get this conversation started and turn your dreams into reality. My friend Dan Beard, he's known as the team mechanic. He began his career in software development and advancing ultimately into leadership roles across multiple disciplines, including director of software development, operations, and product development, and president of a small company. Today, as a business consultant and leadership coach, Dan specializes in removing organizational friction, reigniting team performance, and building sustainable systems where everyone thrives, which is a tough thing to do in today's culture. With decades of experience leading high-performance operations, he helps leaders repair broken processes, realign leadership, and unlock the full potential of their people. His signature Intrinsic Motivation Assessment, IMA, empowers companies to better engage their teams and drive extraordinary, lasting results. So, wow, that's a great bio. Dan, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so we share definitely share some career paths there. I've been in software development and leadership as well at many different functions, and I'm still in IT. IT is my thing, but operations and enabling businesses to grow and profit by implementing systems and having repeatable things. You know, those are things we were talking about before we started recording. So what is the biggest leadership habit that unintentionally creates friction inside a team? Because adopting technology and getting people to use it, there's a whole lot of things in there that can cause friction. So what's your take on that?
So one of the things that I would definitely wanted to talk about with this one is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and it's micromanagement. And
Yeah.
I want to be really specific about micromanagement when I talk about it. But when I talk about micromanagement, I'm talking about when you are removing the opportunity for someone to use their brain.
Mm-hmm.
When decision away from them, or when you are telling them exactly how to get something done, like you in every little detail. I need you to take steps 1 through 10. When you are doing it to that level, you are sucking the life out of a human being. And a lot of companies, especially tech companies, we hire people who have college degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hire a bunch of smart people, but we don't ask them to be smart. So this happens a lot in the startup space. In the startup space, we're grinding. Any wall that gets in the way, we just bust right through it. 50 hours, 60 hours, 70-hour week, it doesn't matter. We're just grinding through it. But what happens is, as people are elevated up within this organization, the Peter principle applies. You are promoted to your level of incompetency. And let's take software example. For example, I was a software engineer for 16 years, and that does not mean that I'm going to be a great software development manager. or a software development leader in the organization.
Right.
Software development is one skill, leadership is a skill. So if you don't take time to learn the other skill, you're not going to be really good at your job. So what happens is, as people are elevated into these positions, I know your job better than you do. I'm better than you are at it. Therefore, I can do it better than you. There, I'm going to tell you how to do it. And so what was the point of hiring the smart person? It's a waste of talent. And you're taking away their autonomy too. So you're just really going to make them hate their job.
Yeah, I've run into that same problem with myself.
Really?
And I can, when you mentioned this, I thought of a guy that I had hired as a software developer, and uh, he totally, this angered me because it was my system. I created the whole thing by myself, and then I brought people in, which is a really hard thing to do when you have a big ego like me, So and he couldn't get the job done because he just, there was a way to operate the system that he needed to operate, and he was in charge of the operation of the system as well as maintaining it, but he really wasn't developing anything new. But he wanted to develop things new, but that's not what I asked him to do. And so I was micromanaging to that point, but I was so busy, I really couldn't do a very good job at micromanaging. So that's a good thing. So I wasn't able to do that, but I did really want him to do it a certain way. And so he broke things because he didn't want to do them that way. And I think he might have done that intentionally. But yeah, totally. And did he thrive as a developer? Not until I left that company. And he eventually left and moved on to somewhere else in the area because he had moved in from out of state. And smart guy, a typical developer, not a leadership guy, but you need coders, and he was a good coder.
Yeah.
So he did really well. But yeah,
if you were to change something about that and do it differently, how do you think you would do it? Would you hire a different person? Would you define the role differently?
I probably would have hired a different person because he wasn't really a good fit for the team to begin with. Because he wanted to do things his own way. He didn't really want to follow and learn what had come before him. Because I brought him in to help maintain what came before him, and so he had to have a maintenance role skill set, which he didn't. But I was green as far as hiring developers for that position, and I wasn't really I'm not a degreed software engineer like you probably are. I'm just a guy who can make it happen,
right.
and learn how to code on my own. So that there's a lot of things there, but yeah, I probably would have hired someone else. But I was under pressure to hire people.
Oh man, we could talk about that a lot too.
Yeah.
Just real quick, you just sending me on a whole string of thoughts about hiring and poor hires, and the pressure to hire is one of the worst, especially when you're talking about software engineers, where you have technically minded individuals who all have different personalities. Some people are extremely introverted. Some people are even autistic. Some people are just not wired the same. So you have to understand your team. I had an interview with a guy, and technically he was great, but I had this one question that I would ask people, and it was basically, we're at midnight, we're trying to fix a problem on $1 million project. We've got to have it delivered in 6 hours. How are you going to behave? And I'd kind of run them through this scenario. And this one guy said he would start yelling at people if he had to. Like, nope, that's not going to work here. We're going to pull together as a team and get things done. I'll yell at people. It's like, nope, wrong fit. So hiring for fit is a real big issue, especially, coming out of the startup space. At first, you're hiring people, you need people. And then you're hiring specialists who have certain skill sets, right, that you have to bring in. And if you don't hire the right people at the beginning, your culture can really shift in a direction that you're not anticipating.
Yeah. So because we're both software geeks, we can talk about this for a long time, but
Oh, good.
our
Yes,
audience
absolutely.
our audience is
Yeah.
business owners who are trying to
Right.
maybe hiring their first employee, or first even just a VA,
Yep.
or working with, and maybe this it's a joint venture and they have to work with another team.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that we can do to help our audience understand how they can navigate that? You mentioned startup a number of times, so
Yeah.
a lot of our people here in this audience are either startups, or they're small service oriented businesses, um, that either have a small team or are building a small team.
Yeah.
So what are some tips that we can give them?
Understanding your team first. Who is on your team? How do they interact? How do they behave? We're going to get to the intrinsic motivation assessment. Is really helpful to understand your team better, what naturally drives them. So if you naturally know what naturally drives your team, when you start to hire, you can gear your questions towards those motivators. And so when you are then asking certain questions to check for motivators, you can start to see, okay, they mesh or they don't mesh. When we get to that one, we'll talk more about that. But definitely, it's understanding your team, and then when you're talking to that person, do they vibe in the same way?
Yeah, and I looked up the intrinsic motivation, just so I could talk a little like I wasn't stupid about it. But don't you think that knowing what your own motivations are, and how you work, even as a solo entrepreneur, aren't those really like that's the starting point of it all, isn't it?
Right. And absolutely, yes, 100% agree with that statement. And I think we don't have the labels for our motivators. Like we
Yeah.
think we know what motivates us, but really there's just I've got 11 categories that we break things down into, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
understand those labels and what they mean, then you can see it in yourself, and then you can start seeing it in other people. I'm at the place now where I can hear someone talking and I know one of their motivators just from what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to when we get to that, I definitely want to talk to you about that more, because I want to know your motivators. That's one thing I want to know today.
Okay, good. And I'm going to bear it all. You're going to let me know
Excellent.
what you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about 60s, the grind. We talked about the grind, and sometimes we tend to reward the grind. And I work with a client who has a number of departments, and one of the departments definitely recognizes that they need to work longer hours because of the slow season, or because of the busy season that they're in. The other department seems not to get that, and they don't ever work ever, and there's always this. Well, if you work with teams, you know it. The one team feeds the other one, and
Yep.
they feed them jobs, and then they need to turn that job back to them, and it needs to be in a timely manner and all that. And there's a communication problem there, and there's resentment because the one team that's working longer is not working, and the other one isn't, and they're not getting. And they're in the sales department, so they need to get things done so they can service their customer. And so that's a long way of saying, how do you reward those and how do you motivate those people to be on the team and to get the job done in the busy season without burning out? There's a lot of lot of
Yeah.
little dials I just put in there, but
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah. It starts with being open about it. When you hire somebody, to say, listen, these 3 months of the year are a grind. We're going to do that every year. And that we're going to try and improve our systems, or hopefully you're trying to improve your systems along the way, so that you
Yeah.
are making their jobs easier with automation, with AI, whatever it is, so that you can make your employees' lives better. But really, open
Yeah.
honesty, just to be able to say, look, this is how it goes. This is going to
Mhm.
happen. And that way you are setting the stage. Because if you don't say that to somebody and the first tidal wave hits, they're going to leave. And you've spent 6 months training time trying to get them up to speed, and they're
Mhm.
gone. You shoot
Yeah.
yourself in the foot there. So you have to be very clear about it. And, I've worked with companies who have this unspoken expectation. I ask them to speak it. let them know what you think. Or like, this person's not working hard enough. Well, what are your expectations? Have you talked to them about those expectations? Well, no, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to upset them. Well, they might leave if I tell them that.
Yeah.
The expectations are still there, but they don't even know it. That's not fair to them at all.
And that reminds me of a previous guest that we were talking about earlier, Tucker Miller.
Yep.
Those conversations that are difficult to have, I think we need to have a conversation. Or
Yeah,
can we
I love
talk?
that.
Can
Yeah.
we talk? Yeah. Yeah, that was really good. So the other thing that can happen in companies when they have teams is siloed knowledge.
Yeah.
And what kind of problem does that present, and how can, especially a startup business owner, I always like to say and I've worked with numbers of startups and had my own startups, and I had a company where once you get to a certain level, you need to retool so you can get further. You
100%,
get,
yeah.
and we hired a consultant for me, an IT consultant, and he just said, "Yeah, we're paying for sins of the past." So when
Yes.
you're growing, while you're growing, when you're the solo, chief bottle washer and janitor and everything else, you tend to just do everything. But at some point, you're going to have to write those things down, document what you do, and separate those roles so that you can train people that can take on those roles.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a multifaceted question because
Yeah.
I'm good. I do that a lot. So how do we? I guess misaligned roles is one of the things that happens.
Yes.
And then there's that siloed knowledge that happens as a result of that. And when you bring on a team as the owner and the chief bottle washer and janitor, you know everything. You know everything about the business. And so you tend to hold on to things instead of teaching people how to do it. So what kind of problems does that have, and how can a business owner ward that off and plan to get out of that trap?
And I get brought into companies when they're trying to get out of startup mode, right? And so a lot of the things that I talk about are things that I've seen consistently. And the siloed
I was hoping.
Yeah, everything, like, especially on my newsletter, everything that I write about, it's like problems that my customers have. And I write about them because I figure everybody has the same problems. And so siloed knowledge is one of those, it's kind of a little thing that can grow very big. As your company is growing, expanding, doing more, you're right, you have fewer people who are doing more jobs, less specialized. As you get more specialized, you have some people who have a tendency to accumulate knowledge. And that knowledge becomes power, because it's power within the organization. I have worked with so many places that they have the brilliant jerk who holds the keys to the castle. And so what does the executive team think? Oh, well, he is a poor behavior. His toxic behavior is infecting people, but he's got the keys to the castle. So what are we going to do about it? It puts the executive team in a bad position, because this brilliant jerk knows everything, knows where all the skeletons are buried. So what do we do about this? And it creates this level of fear. And what I've found is you have to start those conversations, like Tucker was saying. You get into those conversations where, first of all, you talk about their behaviors, and you talk about the things they're doing and how they're changing the culture of the organization, and where you want to take this culture of this organization, and do they want to buy into that? But there's a fear that if they say the wrong thing, then they're screwed, right? But the truth is, if you can address it directly, first of all, have the conversation. Hey, this is the behaviors we're seeing. We want to change the culture and take it in a different direction. We want you to be on board with that. Can you be on board with that? And if not, hey, that's okay. We're going to start a runway for you so that you can exit out. And we're going to get the, I worked with a place, Paul, coming from South Korea, you'll love this. Only one person knew how to do deployments. One person, the brilliant jerk, knew how to do deployments. And we had to figure out a way to basically say, you have to automate this now, or you have to put it in documentation. You have to make it so that anybody can do that. And there's a little bit of a like, these are my marbles and stay away from them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to push past that, and you have to let them know this is for the security of the organization. Because to answer the question, why is it important and how does it kill momentum? Because number one, you can have somebody who can hold you hostage. If they don't like the way that things are going and they've got all the passwords, do you really want to be in that position? You don't. So that's the first way. And then just what they do to cultures, they can hold on to that information and use it like power. And so I think that being able, sorry, let me rephrase that. Coming out of startup mode, you have to be able to have conversations about where you are and where you're going. And if somebody doesn't fit into that, it's okay. They were great. There's the old saying, what got you here won't get you there. And there are stages and evolutions and phases of a company. And you have to recognize where you want to go. And if somebody's not on board with that or can't change to meet those needs, they can't stay. So that's siloed information. And that's where it can really kill you. It's fragility. It's single points of failure in your organization that can take you down. Somebody can get COVID, right?
And sometimes you don't even recognize it. One thing, by the way, you mentioned that he's the keeper of the passwords. I highly recommend that you start using a password manager.
Yep.
I use Keeper. I've been using LastPass. I've used RoboForm for many years, and I switched over to Keeper because it's because they have an enterprise level admin console, so that you can manage all the passwords. You can audit them. You can share the ones securely one time with a vendor or with a part-timer or a contractor or a virtual assistant, and revoke those at the administrative level.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend using some sort of password management. There are so many gotchas that'll help you. It'll help you.
There's so many platforms out there now that companies use on a regular basis, right? So it's not just the passwords, it's also the email addresses. How do you log into that system? Is it that person's email address? Do you have a generic email? Do you have an information do you have those kinds of things, so that person's email isn't directly tied to everything? Because when a startup is growing, you just start it with your email address, right?
Yeah.
But these are things as you evolve and you mature that you have to do.
Right, and those are things that you have to, as the owner, you have to start to plan for that.
Correct.
And you can use aliases and things like that. Google Workspace has a really great feature built into that. You can buy one user and have aliases for it, so you can manage that. You can put that in your password manager and make things more role-based versus person-based, so that a person can take over that role. Because you're going to have people come and go in your organization, especially these days. In the one company that I work with, they've got a long tenure, very long tenure, which is amazing, but it's also dangerous because people are aging out. And so you need to make sure that when I say retool your organization, start now when you're small, and or no matter where you are, start to do things like that, where you can organize passwords and access to systems. Makes a whole lot of sense. So, but we're getting back into our geek land here again.
It's where we just naturally tend to go, right?
Yeah. So, and misaligned roles is another one that I think is important to point out, because again, you're as the CEO of a company, or as the founder of the company, you're the CEO, the president, you're the janitor, you're the chief marketing officer, you're the HR person. You might not need HR at this point, but at some point you still have responsibilities legally as you grow your company. So eventually you're going to have to fan out those and fill out those roles, chief financial officer, and those kinds of things. So you're going to have some structure at some point. So there's a great book called The E-Myth, which is the entrepreneur myth by Michael Gerber that talks about filling those roles. How do you see business owners adapting that kind of mindset when they're in the startup mode, moving into teams and growing past the startup phase?
It can be really hard for them to let go because they have their hands in everything. And
Uh-huh.
there's a realization that happens that if you continue to just have your hands in everything, you're not scalable. And if you can't scale, you can't grow. And so
Right.
these are conversations I've had with CEOs, like, okay, what are you the best at? What do we need to get off your plate? We talk about that all the time. What's coming off your plate? This is going here so that you can go. We want our CEOs to be 3, 6, 9, 12, 36 months into the future. We want you to be seeing what the market is doing in your area of expertise, not necessarily in the day-to-day operations. We want your teams to be taking care of that. But we're talking about misaligned roles. And one of the behaviors that I've seen in the startup space is that people will start off, they'll be brought in kind of as a generalist within their organization, right? And then the job that they were doing at a C level, they bring in an A level person to do that job. Somebody who's an expert at that, say marketing, right? You were doing Google ads for our company pretty good. It was okay to get us started, but now we really want to bring in that real expert who can really drive us forward. So,
Yeah.
and then, well, I don't want to work for somebody else. Okay, well, we'll find another spot for you. I've seen this happen so many times. I call it the island of misfit employees, where you had
I
a
love
job
that movie.
This one's a horror movie. The
Yeah,
Island
it
of
is.
Misfit Employees is a horror movie. So we take
Yeah.
this person who was okay at this and we put him in a job they've never had before. It's like, it's okay, we'll put you over here. And that really is a misalignment, right? That's not what
I see.
they liked doing this, but okay, I'll stick around. I really like the company. I'll learn how to do this. It's fine. But then there's usually some buddy with the CEO or somebody else at the organization. I knew the founder. And so they want to keep them around. They don't want to fire them. And what ends up happening is that their performance continues to degrade and they don't do any better because you put them on that island. And it's the founder, the owner, the CEO who said, I really want to keep you, for their own selfish needs, but it ends up going south eventually because they just can't keep up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking of the misaligned roles where the founder can't relinquish that role.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense, and I've seen it happen many times, and ultimately that employee or that contractor ends up leaving.
Yeah,
Ends up
eventually they do. And there's usually sour grapes over it too. There's usually the thing that the founder CEO person was trying to stop from happening, which is bad feelings, happens anyway.
Happens anyway, and it hurts
Instead of,
morale, not
yeah,
just the person who's on the island of misfit employees.
right.
It hurts the other ones who are on the beach who are trying to get everything done,
That's correct.
and
Yeah, and
and their morale goes south.
it really does. And it's there's a lot of things that happen unintentionally when you're coming out of startup mode. And this is
Yeah.
one of them. And it's sad. And I've seen it not more than a couple of times. I've seen it several times. So, and I have to talk to people about, hey, it's kindness to let people go sometime. And in this case, if you're just creating a spot for this person, you're showing loyalty, yes, but you're showing that I really don't want to scale this company. I really don't want to get better because this person got you here, but they're not going to get you there.
Yeah, one of my buddies, his family owns a really super successful auto dealership. And they've since moved on. But one of their philosophies, and my buddy was, he and I were in a mastermind group, and I was talking to him about his company culture. I said, "Hey, if you're thinking about moving on, you need to make sure that this thing lives on because I've bought literally a dozen or more cars from the same guy, and because of the way that you treat your people." And he said, and I was talking to him about tenure and people and how the today's employee is different than when we were coming up, when
Big
we were
time.
coming up,
Yeah.
and they don't stay for very long. And he said, yeah, and I realized that, and he was in charge of that employee development and recruiting. And so what his philosophy was that we're going to take this employee and we're going to train them up and we're going to make them better than they were when they got here. So when they go to the next place they're going to work, that they're going to be even more successful. And that's a really super common good, the good of the common good attitude. Of course, he was a Christian, and he felt that he lived that. What is your take on that? What do you think about that kind of that approach to hiring and building people?
I think as a leader, that's your job. And I
Yeah,
think that's what a lot of people who get promoted into leadership don't realize. You're not, your job is not to do the thing that you've just been doing and watch some other people do it too. No, no, no. You've got to make them better.
yeah,
They've got to become a team that does it. And you have to
mhm,
be the coach of that team. You have to grow them. I'm working with someone right now, and they when it hit them, it was like a light bulb. It was like, bing, oh, my job, oh, well, that's different. I don't know how to do that. It's like, yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm here to show you how to do. And that's that leadership development skill set that you have to develop. Absolutely. And that it's something you're not aware of. I call it the awesome weight of leadership. Because what happens is, like, I remember when it happened to me, I was promoted into a position where I was leading operations for this company. And I was sitting at my desk one day and I had some things I had to get done. I wasn't feeling particularly motivated. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but this just thought hit me. It was like, I'm responsible for their paychecks. I'm responsible for their family's well-being. If I
mhm,
don't do a good job leading them, they won't have job. That's an awesome weight to put on your shoulders. And
yeah,
I love that your friend, is had that same mindset. That's one where I try to get companies to realize, what's the saying? What happens if you spend a whole bunch of time and money training someone and they leave? Well, what happens if they stay? You've
yeah,
got the same person, right? So
yeah,
you've got to consistently be growing your people. EOS has a framework that puts out rocks, every quarter. So every quarter, everybody has a goal. And the attempt of that, I think the intention of that is to help people grow. It's to set a system for people to grow. So one of the things I do is try to help people understand employee evaluations. Where is somebody right now? What are their skill sets? Let's evaluate them across those skill sets. Where are they weak? Where do they need to grow? Where is it good for the company for them to grow? And then you start setting goals in front of them so that they can grow and become better for your organization. It's a win-win
yeah.
situation.
And I think a lot of some companies don't get that right, and they set goals, but they don't actually do that for themselves, and they don't follow up or follow through. So the employee just goes, yeah, whatever, they just check it off and say, yeah, that's my goal for the year. Yeah, my manager said this is my goal, but whatever. I'm just going to do what I got to do because I'm leaving at 5. That's the kind of culture that we have to deal with
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And you have to be intentional about your culture. What kind
Yeah.
of team do you want to have? What kind of company do you want to have? If you're not intentional about it, it will just evolve and you won't necessarily like it.
Now, these are all symptoms that we're talking about here when someone is stuck in the survival
Right.
death spiral. I call it. So,
Could
what are
be.
some of the what are yeah could be what are some of
Yeah.
the signs that our audience can use to recognize that and say, oh, I need to get some help. I need to call in Dan, or I need to get a mentor or a coach or something to help me move forward with this because I really do want to grow my business.
There's a lot of signs, but the one that really stands out is fire drills. When you have to run a fire drill to get something done all the
Mhm.
time, you're
Yeah.
in the startup mode and you're not getting out of it anytime soon. You know, the things that you
Mhm.
really have to get in place are your people. We've talked about hiring the right people, your processes is and standards. It goes in with processes. Does everybody understand their job and how to do it effectively? And then systems. Systems is the one that really determines the future success of your organization. You know, there's
Yeah.
companies that can make millions of dollars per year running on spreadsheets. At
Yeah.
some point, it's not scalable and it's not sustainable. And
Yeah.
you have 50 people in one spreadsheet doing something. And there's so many problems that happen with that. And so
Mhm.
what that turns into is we have a fire drill to go fix this problem that happened over here. Okay, we all need to stay late to make this thing happen. Those types of things are in the short term as you're growing, as you're starting your business, you're breaking stuff and you're moving fast. But as your company grows and matures, you have to move past that. You have to have
Mhm.
systems in place. So one of the things that happens in companies and startups, this hero culture is what I call cowboys. And these are people who are there at the beginning of the when things start, and when things break, they jump in and they spend 12 hours overnight solving it, and they knock it out, and the next day they're recognized and clapped out by the whole company, and maybe the boss gives them a bonus, and they learn that I'm a crisis person. I can handle crisis well. That doesn't mean you know how to implement systems,
Mhm.
maintenance packages, preventative maintenance, all of the other things that could be stopping these crises from happening. And so
Yeah.
they're not really interested in crisis prevention or maintenance or any of those boring concepts. I'm here to fight
Yeah.
fires. It's what I do. You gave me a raise, you gave me a promotion because I can fight fires. I'm really good at that. Yeah,
Yeah.
when we get the systems in place and the frameworks and the processes and the people, there aren't any more fires. It goes away. And so what
Yeah.
happens to the cowboy? Typically they move on.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned people. No, so, folks that are all listening here, when we say systems, we're not talking about just computer systems,
No.
or maybe not even computer systems at all. We're talking about people, process, and then technology.
Yeah.
So, the way that so a system has to have an operator. Now, these days, an operator can be an AI agent, but we're not going to go down that trail today. But we're talking about people, process, and technology, right?
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
And you
so
have
those are
to,
some.
sorry,
Go
it
ahead.
just going back to the people side of it. I worked with
Yeah.
a company, and the attitude of the company was, it's not personal, it's just business. It's all personal.
Everything's personal.
It's all
Yeah.
personal. It's not just business. It is personal. You're dealing with human beings. It's not just business. You want it to be that way because that absolves you of any guilt of any actions that you take that are not human, that are not kind. It's just business. I didn't, I had to be a jerk to that person because it helps the business. You didn't have to
Right.
be that way, but that's your attitude about it. It helps you forgive yourself because it's just business.
Yeah. And when you're building those systems, building them out, you need to have your people involved
Yep.
because they're the experts in in the operations, and you might also be an expert. You might be a subject matter expert, but you've got
Yep.
others out there too that are stakeholders. They're the ones who are going to interact with the process or the system that you're building.
Yep.
So you've got to get their buy-in. Those are some things that I think you probably run into. What are some of the ways that you can kind of ward off the problems of having a system without getting people involved?
Uh, Ask that question again. I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking.
Okay. So a company needs a new CRM, and what they
Yes.
do is they buy it on shiny features and what they think they want to be able to do, but they didn't
Okay.
involve their people
Oh,
in
okay.
the decision
Yeah.
of which one would work best for them. And then they wonder when they implement and they spend $1 million or $1,000 or $10,000, whatever it
Yeah.
was, to implement it, that no one's using it.
Yeah. It's a common problem, extremely
Yeah.
common problem. And this is where, having a team that you trust really matters. Who has experiences in CRMs? Okay, we want to get all you people together. We want to talk to you about CRMs. What did you like about this one? What did you not like about this one? What features do we need? It's also involving your IT team, right? How are we going to do integrations between these things, right? What has AI built into it? There's so many different questions now, but if you take that command and control approach from the top down, we're just going to dictate what happens. Yeah, there's no buy-in. You want your team to be involved, because when they're involved, they're bought in. And if they're not bought in and you just try to ram it down their throats, you will get people who won't participate. And there's different ways of dealing with when people won't participate. First of all, I ask questions like, is it required or is it optional? If it's required, that's a part of your job now. That's just, your job's changed. If we have to put it in the job description, we have to put it in the job description. But hopefully, if you're a company that's going to go out and, which AI system you're going to use, which CRM, whatever, talk to your team. Workflow management. I deal a lot in workflow management. Monday.com, ClickUp, Notion, Asana, different ones, because different companies have different ones. Find one that works for you the best. Try them out. They all have trials. Get input from different people. Create a committee, whatever it is. Buy-in is going to be your most important thing. You really want your team involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking, we've been circling around this. And so let's get to the intrinsic motivation. Which is, like I said, we've been circling around this whole thing. What motivates people? So describe, why is understanding intrinsic motivation a non-negotiable skill for modern leaders?
When you understand intrinsic motivation, you understand the person in a different way. This started for me over 10 years ago. I saw this great TED Talk with Dan Pink. It's called The Puzzle of Motivation. I still use it in my training with leaders today. And he wrote a great book. It's called Drive. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. And he talks about motivation 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Motivation 1.0 being the basic needs of human beings. We need food, we need shelter, we need relationships, things like that. Motivation 2.0, I would put into the category of positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. He calls it carrots and sticks, right? We want to reward the people who are doing a great job with money, bonuses, all that stuff, promotions. And the people who don't do a great job are going to tongue lashings or firing, things like that. So positive and negative reinforcement. So that's extrinsic motivation, right? When somebody is outside of yourself trying to motivate you in a certain way. If somebody is screaming at you, to push harder and do more, that is an extrinsic person talking to you. It's not yourself.
Yeah.
So now intrinsic motivation is, what are we naturally driven about? And here's the question I wanted to ask you about this, Paul. You do this podcast. You don't have to do this podcast, right?
No, I don't have to.
What do you like about doing this podcast?
Meeting people like you, having conversations, learning. I have a motivation to learn. I don't have a degree. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. When I was 5 years old, in my sandbox, I asked about my neighbor, Mr. Cedar, and my mom said he was a self-made man. He also had a dealership like my friend. That I was telling about earlier, a car dealership. And I said, I decided at that moment, I'm going to be a self-made man too. So at 5 years old, I had made a decision of how my life was going to be. So I did not go to college and do all those things that a lot of people expect you to do, especially a person who's in IT and marketing like I am. But I have a thirst for learning. So I've been learning all this time, learning about sales, learning about marketing, learning about IT, learning about music. I'm a musician, a drummer and singer. And so learning about all these things. I'm not a master of any of them, but I know just enough to really make things happen. I love operations. So my thirst for learning, and also my parents were doctors, and they treated people not just their symptom. They treated holistically, which is like a catchphrase, but they really wanted to know the person. They had a connection with them. If they couldn't pay, they bartered with them. Mr. Johnson was one of their patients, and he built us a jungle gym and all kinds of toys and stuff as we were growing up. I had four brothers and a sister. Um, when my father passed away on his deathbed, we had just gone live with one of my first computer systems that I'd implemented for my mother's practice. They were both doctors, had a medical practice. I know this is a long answer.
Okay, keep going. It's great.
But on his deathbed, I said, Dad, we went live this week. We discovered $80,000 in dollars in unbilled Medicaid, and we're gonna get that. We're gonna get all that because we caught it, and we're gonna move fast because we have automation behind it. And he was so proud of that. And he said, I want you to promise me that I made a promise that I would help my mother with her practice and carry on with that. And little did I know, and I didn't even recognize it until many years later, that what became my mission was to help business owners apply automation and to be more profitable, to fix their operations, and so when I see one of my systems out there and people taking advantage of what I'm teaching them and having them be successful in their business and they're growing, and that just lights me up. And talking to people like you and learning from people like you, because I'm not I'm not as well versed in leadership as you are. I might not know Google Ads or Google Business Profile marketing or email marketing, as well as some of the people that I bring on my show. I want to know those kinds of things, and I want to help my listeners learn from what I'm learning, what I'm exploring. So I'm getting free coaching, by the way, when I'm on this podcast. But that's what motivates me, helping people to succeed. And it's not just systems and business. I'm a Christian, and I have a ministry and things, involvement with the church and things like that because of that exposure to my parents' generosity and their faith. And they were always my mom retired when she was 86 years old from practicing medicine, and and when she had her caregivers, she was still counseling them and still helping them to navigate life's challenges. So that's what motivates me. And maybe there's something that you see, because I was going to ask you, okay, who am I and what motivates me?
Yeah.
Well,
I've got it all right here. And this is what I love about what we were talking about before. I can put labels on the things that you just said. As you're talking through, I'm going through my head and I'm thinking, oh, I know I'm tagging your motivators in my mind, because here's what I've learned. As leaders, we tend to motivate from our motivators, right? So my example for this is I was working with a team of designers, and the head designer says when he, was troubled because his team didn't seem real motivated. I'm like, well, how do you talk to your team? He goes, well, we're coming to the big end of a big project. It's like it's the fourth quarter. It's crunch time. Like we got to bear down and we got to sprint to the finish. And so he's using all these metaphors that are like sports driven. And so I'll just lead into the first one. Competition is a motivator. Some people are competitively driven. And so as he is talking to me about competition, I'm curious, how many people on his team are driven by competition? None.
Zero.
Not one of them. There were 3 or 4 other different ones, but so he is leading from a place of competitiveness, and they're to the point where it's like, I'm tired of hearing about the fourth quarter. I don't care about the fourth quarter. So he doesn't understand why they're not getting motivated, and they don't understand why he keeps using the same metaphors. So let's jump into some of the things that you were talking about. The first one, and this is of the 11 motivators. I'll try and hit the ones you talked about first and then come back. So curiosity is a motivator. Number 1 on my list too. I am a learner. I want to know more. I have a YouTube subscription so that I can go learn on anything that I want to learn about. And I learn about a lot of different things. It's a little ridiculous, honestly. So curiosity is a strong driver motivator for you. You aren't what we would call a college educated learner. That doesn't mean you don't learn. You learn and you're driven by knowledge. Okay. The first thing you said was, I like learning from people like you. I like talking to people like you. That's relatedness, another motivator. And you talk about your ministry and your church. You like people. You like to be around people. You like to help people, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's relatedness, so curiosity, relatedness. Then you really got into a great place. I love this. You got into your purpose, which is another great motivator. You have a drive, you have a goal. And I identify with yours. You want to help people. Like, I went through this process and it was difficult for me. I want to help you go faster, easier. I can show you all of the things I learned when I was doing this, and it's going to make your life so much better. So just from our quick conversation right there, curiosity, relatedness, purpose. These are things that drive you. You also said entrepreneurial life, right? So autonomy, another big intrinsic motivator. You're driven by autonomy as well. You don't want to work for somebody else. You want to drive your own ship. So let me go down the list and tell you the rest of them and try and give you a good understanding of them. So we started with autonomy. That's, being self-governed. I want to determine my own existence in this world. And so when I was talking earlier about new leaders, like telling people what to do and micromanaging, you're taking away one of their motivators is like, I want to learn. Now, this doesn't apply, not learn, this, I want to be in charge. This doesn't apply to everybody. What I see in a lot of the data that I've collected from people taking the assessment is that people who are new in their job are typically low on autonomy because they're there to learn. They're not there to drive things forward themselves. So you see, as people move up the ladder, their drive to be self-governed goes up. Like, I now know what I'm doing, so I don't need you to interfere with me. Just let me go, right? Yeah. So autonomy, first one. And these are the first three are same in Dan Pink's book, Drive. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Mastery is development of a skill and a competency. I want to get really good at something. I think about artists in this way. Artists are like, I want to learn how to draw. I want to learn how to paint. I want to learn how to sculpt. They learn new techniques and they constantly tinker and experiment to try and get better at that. So I see that a lot with art people. Purpose, we talked about. Purpose for me is one that determines whether you're a missionary or a mercenary. Now, you are a missionary. You have a purpose in what you're doing. Now, people who are low purpose on their assessment, they're typically there for the cash. I'm here for the money. Your purpose is fine, but I'm here for the paycheck, right? Yeah. So it's really good to talk about. And this is one of those interview questions. It's like, here is our purpose. Here's what we do. How does this align with you? Is a good question, I think, for an interview. Because if it's it's okay. But if they're like driven, I definitely want to help the world in this way, then you've got the right person. We talked about curiosity. Challenge. I love working with challenge people. It's very, it's kind of easy to determine who's a challenge person. You have your friends who run their 5Ks or run marathons. I have a friend who hiked Kilimanjaro. These are people who are driven by goals in front of them. They want to put a goal out in front of them and they're going to go chase it. So challenge is a real big motivator for them. All right, direction. Now, direction or directing is someone who likes to put the puzzle pieces in place, put everything together and put it in motion. Think about movie directors as one easy one. But I think project managers should be very high on directing. People leaders should be high on directing. These are where, if you don't have an alignment in directing and you aren't high on directing and you become a leader, this could be a bad outcome. Okay. Recognition. Some people want to be recognized. I usually find people early in their career definitely want, especially I see like a lot of millennials, Gen Zs, high recognition. I want to be recognized. I want to be recognized publicly. I think with recognition, it's really important to talk to somebody. How do they like to be recognized? Do you want to be recognized in front of everybody? Do you just want behind closed doors? Because some people are introverted and they don't want the whole world to see. But they do like the recognition. We talked about relatedness. We are connected human beings. We should not be pushing that to the side. We should be embracing that. We should know the people that we're working with. We should care about them. know what's going on in their lives. That's going to make us better leaders. We talked about competition. Passion. Some people want to put their whole heart and soul, and it's not just purpose. Purpose is a little bit different. I'm trying to help the world in this way. Passion is I want to give my everything to something. I want to make it count, right? And I will put everything into it to make it work. And then the last one on the list is vision. Now, I'm sure as an entrepreneur, someone who started a podcast, you had a vision in your mind. And it was to start this thing, maybe get to this many listeners, have this many guests, have this many podcasts, right? You had a vision in your mind, and that vision still drives you forward to this day. Is that correct? I hope that's correct.
Yeah, that's pretty correct. But my vision wasn't that. It wasn't metric. It wasn't metrics. It was more connection.
Okay, relatedness.
Yep, more connection, learning, curiosity. And one of the, I guess, recognition is one of them, is that, I've been behind. I've been in IT for 40 plus years. I'm the guy who makes the things happen in the kind of the background. I'm not in the front, but I'm also a drummer and a musician and a singer, a soloist. So I have both sides. So I do crave the performance and the recognition. So I was at one point I was really, really nervous about becoming visible in this way. And it's like, this is my show. I have guests that I select, and I control the show. It's my thing. So I was worried about conflict of interest with my full-time job, for instance, and being more visible, and what will people think of me? What am I good enough? All those kinds of things. And so instead of just not doing it and saying I'm going to worry about that, I said, okay, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to do this, and whatever happens happens. And that's and my objective was to meet potential partners, strategic partners, clients, and industry experts. And so that I could have, and I can have connection with all of those people, and I get to learn, I get to connect with people, and I can grow my business.
Yep.
And so I don't know how many downloads I have. I don't really care. I know how many shows I have. This is episode right around 115 or 16, something like that, or maybe more. And so I've gotten past 100. And that was a real big milestone for me. I go, wow, okay, I'm in 2 years, and I'm starting to really learn from some of the choices I made when I first started the show, and it's kind of changing a little bit. But that's what's important to me. Sure, it'd be great to have 10,000 downloads per show, and maybe that'll happen someday. Maybe. But I'm more worried about, more concerned with the connection and the curiosity and the potential to grow my business.
Your curiosity, it's in the context of this podcast: curiosity, relatedness, purpose. Right.
Yeah.
These are your top three, I would say. Now, I'm interested for you to take the assessment so that I can look at the results, so that I can see this. So that brings us to the intrinsic motivation assessment, which is a 24 question assessment. So after I had this revelation of listening to this person talk about competition, I'm like, hold on a second, there's got to be a way to test for this. And so I've created the motivation assessment so that what I can do now is, first of all, you can understand yourself. You can take the assessment for free, and you get a readout, tells you everything about yourself, the way you answered the questions. What I do with clients is I do whole teams, and I can put them in a chart where we can look at across the team, what are the motivators for this team? And you will have some outliers, there'll be some differences. And what some of my clients have done is they print out the sheet and they put it on their board. And so when they are getting ready to send an email or they're getting ready to talk to a person, they can review to the motivator. This is like a cheat sheet for your team. And you can say, okay, I need to change this conversation to fit these motivators. And so for you, I would have conversations about what you could learn, how you're going to help somebody, and how it aligns with your purpose. If I was going to try and get you to do something or talk to you about something, hey, we've got this project coming out. If you're a challenge person, it's going to be really difficult. Here's what we're going to do. I really need you on this because I know you can take care of the hard thing. If it's a curious person, hey, we've got this project coming up. Nobody knows a lot about it. Can you go in and start learning? Like you just that language change, you're tapping into their motivators, their natural motivators. So I call it pushing the buttons. You know where their buttons are. And if you change your language, you can hit them naturally.
Yeah. And that will work in sales and marketing as well.
Yeah.
So knowing those buttons, so to speak, would be interesting. So as we wrap up with your final words before we go, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show today. That was a really interesting conversation. It went longer than I thought it would because of all the great little nooks and crannies and areas that we kind of touched on. Of course, we could talk a lot more,
So much more.
longer. But what are 3 things that our listeners can do to put these ideas into action?
Putting these ideas into action is, well, first of all, becoming aware, right? Becoming aware of things like intrinsic motivators. Like, what are they? How can you label them? How can you understand them? Once you become
take the assessment.
Take the assessment. Absolutely, take the assessment.
Yeah.
That's the first one, I think. The other ones are, don't settle for the status quo as it is in your organization. Ask questions. Especially if you are a new leader, there's tons of resources out there for you to figure out how that you get good and recognize that it's a different skill set and that you need to get better at that. And then for companies that are starting and trying to get out of startup mode, take some time to evaluate your processes and evaluate your people and evaluate your systems. Find a way to measure each one of them and figure out where are we going to make changes and which of those changes will have the most impact the soonest. When you can do that, you can start to change your organization to the direction that you really want it to go.
Yeah. And one just to layer on top of that, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So you've got to be able to measure it.
Right. We could talk all about measurements. You got objective and subjective. A subjective measurement is better than no measurement. I would rather have an objective measurement, but subjective is good too. Like when we talk about skill sets with employees, say it's a software engineer, here's how they're good in this language, we need them to get better. Okay, they're a 3 out of 5. We're not sure exactly what that means, but that's something. So
yeah, right. Okay, and so you can take that assessment at workshop.uniteadvisors.com/IMA. That's workshop.uniteadvisors.com/IMA. And of course, you can go to the show notes and check out at leadmachinegrowthshow.com, and you'll be able to find it under Dan Beard. And as we sign off, remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyon, and Dan Beard, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you being on today.
Thanks, sir. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyon, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.